What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And this year, Isaiah Hodgins looks like a prime breakout candidate for the New York Giants. He burst onto the scene last year after the Giants claimed him on the waiver wire. He gets with the Giants, scores a few touchdowns in the regular season, puts up over 100 receiving yards in the wild card round versus the Minnesota Vikings with a partially fractured foot. The guy is a baller. We all love Isaiah Hodgins, and we're excited for him. And today we're going to talk about why he might be able to take that next step and become the WR1 in the Giants offense. Now, he burst onto the scene last year, as I said, but I think he's only getting started. And when you look at some of these stats and you hear them when we're going to bring them up in this episode, they might just blow you away, and you might start to believe as well that Hodgins could be the Giants' WR1 this upcoming season. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all that. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comments section. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on Isaiah Hodgins?
I'm doing great, and I always love a chance to talk about Isaiah Hodgins, oink, and absolutely one of the best players on this offense right now in terms of upside. You know, he's some of the best upside that you can ask for from a player that was a practice squatter last year. You know, look at Isaiah Hodgins. You see where he comes from. He's buried behind a Buffalo Bills receiver core that features Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis and some really solid players. And Hodgins is looking for an opportunity. And when the Giants went and scooped him up, a lot of the fans in Buffalo were wondering why they let him go. They were wondering why Hodgins wasn't on the active roster. And he steps in and immediately, what really stood out to me the most with Isaiah Hodgins was something pretty simple, actually. It was the fact that he was able to assimilate into an offense that he did not necessarily entirely know. He knew some of it because of Brian Daboll, but, Mike Kafka obviously installed his own kind of elements. What I thought was the most impressive thing was that he generated chemistry with Daniel Jones instantaneously, just like that. It was like freaking magic. David Blaine, bam, right out of the hat. You see some chemistry like that. You don't really assume that it took him just a week or two to actually formulate it. Sometimes you look at Isaiah Hodgins, you look at players across the league, and you're like, wait a second. Like, it takes years for some guys to generate that type of chemistry and, have that connection that produces. And some of the stats that Isaiah Hodgins was able to produce last year, and you kind of referenced earlier, by the way, guys, like he had a slightly fractured foot going into the playoffs. I think he scored a touchdown against the Vikings. You know what I mean? Like, this is a player that actually went into the playoffs with a really significant injury to a really significant part of his body that significantly hampered his ability to run routes. And he still managed to produce. Like, that's the type of players you want on this team. The guys that are gonna, just walk over injuries. They're not gonna let it get them down. They're gonna tough it out. Those are the guys that end up winning you championships. Guys that are battered, they're bruised, but they're still going out there and putting all of the effort on the football field. And Isaiah Hodgins made a really big impact in a couple of ways, but one of them was his red zone quality, specifically 0 to 9 yards away from the line of scrimmage at the goal line. He was so freaking good. And it's crazy to think this, right? He had one touchdown in the intermediate range of the field, which is 10 to 19 yards away from the line of scrimmage. He had 4 touchdowns, 0 to 9 yards. They really used him in that red zone period. In that 0 to 10 yard range, he was actively one of their most prominent receivers. And he collected 2 touchdowns on the right boundary, 1 in the front and then 1 on the side. And he had 58 yards and 137 yards from 0 to 9 yards in total. So they were featuring him a lot on shorter route concepts and then asking him to like pick up yards after the catch, which is pretty solid. You look at what he was able to do there. He was averaging 2.6 yards after the catch on 0 to 9 yards on targets there. He generated 242 total yards, 4 touchdowns, 8.1 yards per reception, right? So like, let's make an assumption here. Let's say you run the football, right? And you get 2 or 3 yards. All they were doing was essentially throwing the ball to Isaiah Hodgins. He was averaging 8 yards per reception, and he was producing first downs. He was able to produce 14 first downs in that range, in the medium range of the field, 10 first downs, where he also picked up 168 yards and 1 touchdown. He also hauled in two out of 3 receptions, so 3 targets. He hauled in 2 catches that were 20-plus yards downfield. Which is pretty awesome. And he didn't drop a single pass last year, knock on wood, but he has some of the most reliable hands on this team, Anthony. So when you're looking at Isaiah Hodgins and you're wondering, what can he do for this team? I'll tell you a couple things. He can actually dominate in the short yardage component of the field when you're on the opposing goal line, or he can score touchdowns. He really, really produces there. He also has tremendous hands. Wherever you throw him the football, he's going to be good. He had that slight fracture in his foot last year, so that hampered him down the stretch. He's 100% healthy now, and you're assuming that they're going to try and utilize him a little bit more downfield. He's got a big body, he's got a big frame, and he already has chemistry with Daniel Jones, and he produces. He's that red zone monster, and we've been looking for a guy like that. The Giants have tried to go the big tight end route with guys like Kyle Rudolph and whatever it might be, but that didn't really work out. Levine Toilolo, remember that guy? And now you have a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, who's a good route runner, really good hands, and he just, gets open. Like, he just finds ways to get the ball, and he made some tremendous catches last year. And the fact that he was a practice squad guy is pretty impressive, and he's right now I'd say he's a lock to make the roster. They have him on a 1-year deal, I believe, and then he'll get maybe an extension next year. So we'll see how that kind of unfolds. But Anthony, looking at, what you expect from Isaiah Hodgins in year 2 with the Giants scheme, I'm expecting pretty big things.
So am I, and he's absolutely a lock to make this roster. And again, I think that he's going to play a huge role in this offense. And one of the things that you didn't mention, you mentioned his great efficiency in the red zone, but I want to talk about how he is just Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. Isaiah Hodgins didn't drop a single pass for the Giants in over 50 targets in 2022, according to Pro Football Focus. Think about how impressive that is. 50 times the ball was thrown his way, 0 times did he drop one of those passes. That's a really impressive number. And when you think about the way that this Giants offense was ran last season, they really relied on those receivers to be dependable. And Isaiah Hodgins, I think the reason he got so much playing time early and often after joining the team from the waiver wire was because he was dependable. He goes out there, he's wide open across the middle of the field. He's catching that football if it's accurate. He's not going to drop it and let it go. And that's huge, especially when you look at the Giants over the past few years. I mean, think back to that wild card rounds. I mean, we all love Darius Slayton and believe in him, but that drop that he had almost sunk the ship. That could have been astronomically bad. Like, that could have totally imploded our playoff win. Thankfully, Dexter Lawrence and Xavier McKinney were able to go out there and make that 4th down stop and win the game for the Giants, but they shouldn't have even been in that spot because Darius Slayton had a crucial drop. But I think that if you put Isaiah Hodgins in there, considering he hasn't dropped a pass for the Giants yet, that's a catch, that's a run, that's a first down, that's game over. And I think that's what you really like about Isaiah Hodgins is his ability to just catch the ball and go down securely, not do anything too fancy, and he doesn't worry too much about trying to turn upfield, and I think that's always been Darius Slayton's problem with those concentration drops. He's so fast, it's like he doesn't even know what to do with himself sometimes. He tries to catch it and run immediately, and that causes him not to fully bring the ball in, and then, of course, drop the pass sometimes. But with Isaiah Hodgins, another factor that made him excel in this offense, you mentioned that he has some familiarity with Brian Dable's scheme, but I really think it was all those deep crossers that Mike Kafka was implementing from the Chiefs scheme that really, really fit the skill set of Isaiah Hodgins. He got open on those deep crossers so frequently. I know I did that film breakdown a while ago on the channel. You want more info, more in-depth analysis of Isaiah Hodgins, go search for it on the channel. But one of the things that I really hit on was those deep crossing routes, his timing with Daniel Jones on those, and his ability to just keep running and feeling out where are the pockets in the zone defense. So that really amazing play that Daniel Jones made in the playoffs where he rolled left and then threw across his body onto the sideline, just a deep crosser, and Hodgins just waits it out, sees the open pocket near the sideline, gets there, that's a first down. And he also did that on the right side as well. That's just what he does. He's got really good spatial awareness, and I think that's his best trait, and that's what makes him so good in the red zone for what it's worth. He's a smart player who knows who's around him and where he can get open. So he'll run those little curl routes. Sometimes we've seen Giants receivers run those routes right into the cornerback and just get no separation. But what Hodgins does really well, he won't run it right at the corner. He'll run it right near the corner. Just veer it off a little bit to the side and create that little pocket, that little cushion for Daniel Jones to fit the ball into. And that's what I really think is exciting about Hodgins. He's just a very smart player. And for Brian Dable and his offense, it's pretty complex. You need smart players in there. And I think that's one of the reasons that Hodgins bursts onto the scene so quickly, just because he's got high football IQ, really good spatial awareness. And for what it's worth, we've talked a lot, Alex, about those second routes, right? Where we've seen Giants receivers run one route and then the whole play just kind of falls apart. But some of those other receivers that we've seen come from different offensive systems. I remember Dante Pettis, not that he's a great receiver, but he was playing with the San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan prior to joining the New York Giants. And so he would run those secondary routes sometimes. So when he would get a catch, it was usually off script. And we've seen the same thing with Isaiah Hodgins. He would run a route, not open, but he goes off script. Daniel Jones goes off script, and then they're able to connect. And that's really crucial, especially when you're talking about generating explosive plays or scoring touchdowns in the red zone. That touchdown that Hodgins had against the Colts was just an off script. He couldn't get open. He found the way to get open. And that's what I really, really like about him. So, Alex, when you're looking at the football IQ of Isaiah Hodgins and his ability to find ways to get open, how do you think that can really set things up for other receivers in this offense? Because at times you'll see Hodgins run into one direction, kind of take a player out of the way and, creating that little space, and that opens things up for other players. So who do you think can really benefit from the possibility of Hodgins taking that next step in this offense?
You know what? I'm actually going to flip that around. I think that guys like Darren Waller and Hyatt and Slayton, all the additions that we made is going to make Hodgins even better. I think that ultimately you look at Darren Waller, you look at some of these guys with the speed. You look at Hyatt with the speed, Paris Campbell. When you get Wandale back, he should be ready for training camp, they're saying. You still have Darius Slayton who's got that speed on the outside. You have to worry about a lot of bodies. You know what I mean? If you have Hyatt, Campbell, let's say you have Campbell, Darius Slayton, Darren Waller, and you have Hodgins out there, right? Darren Waller immediately commands two players, the free safety and whoever's covering him. If you're playing man, if you're playing zone, you need to have two sets of eyes on Darren Waller at all times. You know what I mean? That free safety is looking at Darren Waller because that's the guy that's produced over 1,100 yards twice in his career and 9 touchdowns in 2021. That's the guy that has proven dominance at the NFL level. That's the guy that defenses are game planning around. Then you look at Darius Slayton. If you leave him in man coverage, he's going to burn you on the sideline. That is literally all he does. He runs crossing concepts and he runs 9 routes. He goes deep and he crosses the middle of the field, and you're hoping that he separates at some point. Jalen Hyatt, one of the fastest players in the draft class. This is a guy that's going to do the same thing. He can dominate the seams in the slot. He can do the same thing as Darius Slayton. The idea here is that he's a little bit better of a route runner than Darius Slayton, so he might have a bit more of a versatile tree. So we'll see how that kind of develops. And then you have Paris Campbell, was 4.3, legitimate 4.3 speed, and he up the seam, shorter concepts, intermediate, dominating deep downfield, taking advantage of that free safety, was looking at Waller. And then you have Hodgins, right, who is a totally different type of player, a bigger body, tremendous hands, a good, clean route runner. He's more of I'd say he's good at everything, but not great at anything. I think that's what I would say about Hodgins. Darius Slayton has great speed, Paris Campbell has great speed. Darren Waller has great athleticism for the tight end position. Hodgins isn't great at everything, but I'd say he's good at everything. And I think that's a well-rounded, balanced player that he provides. And his hands are I'd say his hands might be the best on the team. That's where you're going to see a lot of defenses. You're trying to game plan around the Giants' speed and athleticism, the downfield explosive plays. And suddenly you forgot, they have this really good receiver that if you throw it in his catch radius, he's going to catch it. He has the hands, he's going to catch it. And if you're not playing tight coverage on him, or you're not baiting them into making bad throws, he is going to produce a lot. And I think that everybody around him and this increased speed and athleticism is actually going to make Hodgins a lot better instead of Hodgins making everybody else better. I think the focus on improving the athleticism and speed has been paramount this offseason. We've kind of noted that a lot. And I think that ultimately there's a reason that they're bringing in a lot of these guys that have speed and can do stuff with tangible traits, because ultimately if you get guys that are athletically gifted, that are coachable and moldable, you can turn them into great players. Guys that are limited athletically, there's always going to be a cap at how good they can be. You know what I mean? There's always going to be all right, we know that this is the level, his ceiling is here. But if you have an elite athlete that is young and coachable, their ceiling, you can't even see it. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where the Giants are going. We need more guys that are going to be able to just create, make things happen, separate, showcase that speed, get downfield, come up with big plays. We haven't had that in the past because a lot of our players have not had that level of athleticism. Now they do. And I think that Hodgins, while he's not the best athlete in the world, he's probably got the best hands on the team. And for a receiver, you tell me, that's a pretty damn important variable to have.
Yeah, 100% it is. The primary job, have good hands, catch the football. And Hodgins does that well. He brings in the passes, and he also just finds ways to get open. That's my favorite trait about Isaiah Hodgins. As I mentioned, he just knows how to get open, whether it's finding those pockets in the zone or separating. He ran a couple really good slant routes last year. He also burned, against the Vikings, burned Patrick Peterson right up the sideline for a deep go ball from Daniel Jones, perfectly placed. He's just got the ability to get open. No, he doesn't have that elite speed, but he has enough speed, is what I will say. So I think Isaiah Hodgins, a very complete player, not an elite athlete like you said, but a very smart player, maybe an elite in mind in his head, right? Like he's just smart. He's got high football IQ, and I think that really propels him to success in this upcoming season. Like you said, there's kind of a lot of mouths to feed now in the Giants offense. Not saying that they're loaded with elite talent, but they've got a lot of guys who are going to want to get the ball and who they're going to want to get the ball to. But Hodgins really does have an opportunity here to just kind of stand out as being Mr. Dependable on every single down, and that might allow him to really play a WR1 role, play that X receiver role, and get a lot of targets. I think he could lead the team in targets outside of Darren Waller. I think Waller gets the most targets. He's your dynamic superstar tight end who's going to be your WR1. But in terms of actually being a wide receiver, a number one wide receiver, I think Hodgins will lead the team in targets out of all the wide receivers just because he finds ways to get open and he's dependable. So I'm really excited for that. I think that he's going to have a big year. But before we wrap up, Alex, one thing that I just want to talk about, a little off topic, not about Isaiah Hodgins, but we didn't really discuss on the channel yet the new paint in the middle of the field. I want to know what you think about that. The Giants finally getting rid of that ugly NFL logo in the middle at the 50-yard line and going with the big NY. Some fans on Twitter didn't really like it. I love it. I think it's well past due, and I really, really am excited to see a big NY in the middle of MetLife Stadium this upcoming year. What do you think about that?
Great, man. It looks freaking beautiful. It looks gorgeous. I mean, we finally looks like we have our own damn stadium. I mean, it's been the NFL logo for so long. Like now it's like, this is Giants. You know, you come in here, you're playing the Giants. You're not playing the NFL, you're not playing the freaking Jets. You're playing the Giants. We can rep our own freaking field for once. And I love it. You know, that's, if you don't like it, I don't know why. Honestly, I don't really get it. I think most people liked it. I think most people would agree that having a huge New York, beautiful Giants, logo in the middle of the field is a beautiful thing. I love to see it. Now, did I wish that the stadium wasn't MetLife? Absolutely. I think it's a garbage can. And I hate that stadium with a passion, the wind and the outdoor, the weather and the vocals and everything. It's a multi-purpose stadium for a reason. And getting there is literally pain inside. Getting home. I live in New York City. Getting home from MetLife Stadium, I would rather freaking walk to that Sahara Desert than take the train with all of the bodies, because you have to wait. You never get the first train unless you leave the game early. You're not getting on the first train. You're getting on the freaking fourth train, and the fourth train doesn't get home for 3 hours. It takes you just about as much time to get home from the game as it actually takes to sit there and watch the game. So, and then you got to transfer at Secaucus Junction. Like, help me. It's mind-blowing the lack of organization that goes around this, and I hate it. I hate going to MetLife. I hate going to the games on the public transportation. I wish I could just drive, but then again, you're stuck in traffic for like 4 hours. Meanwhile, I could just sit at home, enjoy a beer ski, watch the game on my TV, and not even move a freaking inch. I love going to the games for what it's worth. I hate the actual journey there and back. I think most fans would probably agree with me on that, but the tailgating also is dope. So you want to enjoy that as well. But yes, aside from that little rant, I do like the New York Giants logo in the middle of the stadium.
Wow, I opened up a whole can of worms there. Wasn't expecting that, but I think you're very valid in all of your points. But shout out to those who live in New Jersey and just drive over on a casual Sunday afternoon and watch the Giants play. You guys are lucky. But those New Yorkers, they got to go through hell and back just to go to those football games. It's pretty crazy. But I will say, I think that New York Giants MetLife Stadium now feels a lot more like the New York Giants Stadium with that logo in the center of the field. It feels more like a home game now. Still have all those gray chairs everywhere, that gray garbage, but the neutral site. But at least that little Giants logo in the middle of the field makes it look more like a home game. So I'm curious to see how the new MetLife grass works out. Hopefully there's no more problems, no more injuries. Clearly the old turf was a problem and was causing a lot of injuries, but this new turf, I have faith. I'm excited. Hopefully the Giants are a healthier team this upcoming season and don't suffer as many tragic injuries, but they'll be practicing there soon enough, and they'll have Fan Fest as well at the end of August. That's exciting, and that'll be their first time, I think, scrimmaging over there. So stay tuned to that. Maybe I'll be in town and come stop by FanFest, but we'll keep you guys posted on that as we get closer to the date. And of course, we'll keep you posted on everything regarding the New York Giants right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.